Focused on what we're here to talk about, and that is charters and their role in Nashville as we go forward. And so with that being said, Dr. Register, I turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Glover. Good afternoon, everyone. Chairman Glover, members of the Council Education Committee, and other council members who are here. After Steve talked to me about this session, I asked for a moment at the start of the meeting to say a few words about our school system in general, and specifically about today's briefing on public charter schools. Your decision to meet as an education committee of Metro Council on this important topic is both farsighted and commendable. Thank you for taking your time to be here today. I know I'm taking advantage of my long-standing relationship with Chairman Glover with this request to address you. But without his involvement 6 years ago, I might not be here this evening as your superintendent. Steve was literally the first person from Nashville to ask me to apply for this job. And that might be good or it might not, Steve. I'm not sure. I do appreciate this opportunity to say a few words, not as your director of schools necessarily, but as an educator, someone who cares deeply about public education, and particularly about our school system and our children. First, I want to commend the Metro Council and Mayor Dean for the significant investments in funding public education in Nashville you have made during my tenure here. We could not do what we do without your help and continued support, and I thank you for that. Let me start this off by saying what I hope you already know. We have a really good school system in this city with a strong foundation, great leaders, and committed, wonderful teachers. We have pockets of notable excellence, and of course, we still have areas of weakness. We are absolutely on the right path, but that path is not always easy. As my official time as the leader of this community's education system begins to wind down, and as I consider my experience as a lifelong educator and longtime superintendent, I want to tell you that your school system has the potential to be great. Not just good or adequate or okay, but truly great. The possibilities are endless. Our goals are absolutely attainable, and the future is bright. As all of you know, we have over the last few years experienced transformational change in the way we approach education of our children in this community and across the nation. These changes have greatly increased the amount and the intensity of education-related discourse in our neighborhoods and across the city, as well as in the media. The ongoing and frankly sometimes passionate discussion about this important topic is good. Passion around the education of our children should be encouraged and celebrated. But over the last year or so, there has been a steady and ever-increasing tendency toward miscommunication and gamesmanship in our dialogue, and a push for polarization in our ongoing discussions about the future of education in this city. These actions have created distrust and hard feelings where understanding and common purpose once ruled the day. In the very near past, when we disagreed, we did so respectfully. Not so today. It has at times been mean and personal. We have lost civility in our dialogue on education reform in general, and regrettably so, particularly as it concerns our charter schools. This loss of civility has caused good people and quality institutions that have the same basic goals, the quality education of future generations of Nashvillians, to take sides and to develop an unhealthy us versus them mentality. I think that most of the people in this room will agree with me. Enough is enough. This is not some sort of game where it's okay to judge winning or losing by which press release or pithy statement gets printed in the newspaper or gets highlighted on the nightly news or gets most play on social media. It's not about a campaign to discredit one person or another because they may disagree with you. It should be about, and only be about, what's best for our school system and developing and maintaining great schools for our children. When we take a step back and really think about it, the biggest losers in this kind of scorched earth campaign style approach to our discussion about schools of choice, our children are the ones who suffer. I believe this type of behavior needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. If you agree with me, I ask for your help. I'm asking all of you tonight, individually, as important opinion leaders in our community, and as members of the council, to join me in finding the most effective way to immediately transition our dialogue to a place where this community, our school system, and our school system can find stability and reinstate a collaborative and transparent environment where innovation and true partnerships can flourish. A place where all ideas are discussed respectfully. A place where the best ideas rise to the top and are implemented. And a place where bad or outdated ideas are simply left behind. I plan to ask my partners over the coming days and weeks, Mayor Dean, Vice Mayor Neighbors, and this council, our state legislative delegation led by Speaker Harwell, Governor Haslam's administration, community partners like the Public Education Foundation, Nashville's Agenda, the Chamber of Commerce, SCORE, the United Way, the charter community, and of course our school board to join in this effort. It's my desire that over the next few weeks and months, we can address and eliminate the hard feelings that have developed and reinstate a constructive climate of trust and true collaboration. Why do I think this is so vitally important? Because I believe our future depends on it. The next mayor of this city and the next superintendent of your school system will have an exciting opportunity presented to them as they transition into their new roles. This includes the opportunity to take public education in Nashville to new heights of excellence. But I respectfully submit to you that if we aren't thinking about how we reset the conversation on public education in this city right now, tonight, starting right here in this chamber, the new mayor and the new superintendent are going to find themselves in a precarious place and will be less able to take this system to that next level. The meeting today is a perfect context for this topic. It is absolutely critical that the district embrace the important role that our education colleagues in the charter school sector play in the future of education in Nashville. I know that this district's charters are by and large very successful. It's evident that we are seeing outstanding educational gains from public charter schools as well as from other schools of choice and many of our zone schools. While I'm so very proud of all these schools, I acknowledge that there is real and pressing need to literally reset the conversation about charters and other schools of choice in our community. Specifically, I want to immediately jumpstart the process of determining best practices associated with what makes charters and other high-performing schools work for our parents and children, and to facilitate the implementation of some of these ideas across our system. I hope the charter community will agree to assist me with this important work. To that end, and as a first step, I will ask the Charter Center to work with me to convene a monthly meeting with charter leaders, Dr. Coverstone, and other members of my senior staff and willing members of the Board of Education. There is so much common ground that exists among these individuals and institutions, and we simply need to work harder to find and exploit this for the benefit of our children. We should be about this work starting tomorrow morning. In the end, the question that we seem to have missed in the ongoing and overheated debate about charter schools is really quite simple. How can we utilize our district's assets, all district assets, especially our high-performing schools that are built around some level of choice and excellence, to ensure that our children, all of our children, regardless of where they reside or where they go to school, can achieve to their highest potential. To that extent, I will be reaching out to my partners in the Nashville educational community, generally as we did with our recent attrition study, to have them assist the district in conducting in-depth research that will assist us in analyzing our financial practices to make sure that we are giving adequate weight to educational quality, results, and return on our investment in our district funding models. This research, when completed, will advance and build upon the limited initial work of the fiscal impact study that is currently underway, such that when both studies are complete, we and our constituents, partners, and funders will have a more robust and complete, comprehensive, and unbiased understanding of what it takes to lead our schools to the results we desire and that our children richly deserve. In conclusion, I want to reset the conversation about the future of public education in Nashville. We must learn and build on our best practices from all high-performing schools to improve practices in every school. Most importantly, I want to renew a sincere spirit of civility, cooperation, and optimism when we agree, and lead a respectful, meaningful, and constructive dialogue when we don't. Over the next year, I'm committing to doing everything I can, professionally and personally, school system for this community. On this, you have my word. Mr. Chairman, thank you for indulging me for this courtesy, and thanks to all of you who do everything you do every day to make this a great city. Thank you very much.
Dr. Register, I'm going to ask you to stay here for just a second. Councilman Stein, I believe you have a question, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question. There are unexpected moments for all of us who are in public life, and your statement is an unexpected moment in a usually uneventful education committee meeting. But I think it bears stopping and reflecting for a moment, because I think you have expressed sentiments that an awful lot of us that have felt caught in the middle of a debate, and you have reached out in a way that I think is hugely significant for our community at this point in time. And I have unbelievable faith in this city, in our ability to deal with issues if we listen to each other. And I think we had stopped doing that. And I want to commend you for stepping out at this point in time. My suspicion is that I'm only the first to speak, but I think there are an awful lot of people who are ready to jump on the bandwagon and ready to sit down and dialogue about all of this in a civil, listening way, and try to put aside some of the rhetoric that is frequently personal and frequently hurtful. And Dr. Register, you have done yourself and this community great credit tonight, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you for your remarks.
Thank you, Councilman Stein. I'm going to take just a point of order, if you don't mind. This is one of the reasons I asked you to come here, because I knew you were able to be the leader that we needed in Nashville. We're obviously growing, and I think this is the right time and the right place to have this conversation. As the funding body for the metro government, I'm glad to see that we're looking at how we invest our dollars and as we move forward. Justin Testerman, if you don't mind, sir, I'm going to ask you to come up, introduce everyone from the charter organization, and then we'll go forward with the introductions, etc. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Glover, members of the Education Committee, council members, thank you for this opportunity to share information about charter schools in Nashville, and to start what we hope will be a continued dialogue about the future of education in our great city. My name is Justin Testerman, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Tennessee Charter School Center, and I'm also the proud parent of 2 MNPS students at Granbury Elementary. Before I begin, I'd like to take a moment and thank Dr. Register for his wise and passionate words. It truly is a breath of fresh air. This is exactly the kind of leadership that we need in our city right now, and your words leave me hopeful and excited about what we can accomplish if we work together over the next several years. The Tennessee Charter School Center wholeheartedly agrees with your call for a return to civility and collaboration and partnership, and we will enthusiastically accept your offer to convene monthly meetings of district and charter leaders. As you noted, this doesn't mean that we'll always agree, but we can do so with civility and respect. It's an important issue. There's lots of different opinions, and I think if we stay rooted in that belief that you stated, that our common goal is to create a world-class system of public education in Nashville, then we can be the best of partners. And so again, I thank you, and you can expect to hear from me first thing tomorrow morning. Chairman Glover, members of the committee, members of the council, I'd like to thank you again for this opportunity to build a stronger understanding of charter schools and their role in improving our education system. Charter schools are not a silver bullet or a panacea for curing all the ails of public education. They are, however, an important tool for reform and demonstrating that all students can be successful regardless of their zip code or background, and that this kind of success is what we should expect for all of our students. Tonight, you will hear from some of the leaders of the strongest charter schools in Nashville, along with the board chair of the school and a parent of a charter school, several charter school students. I don't know if this is control
I'm not sure. Rosie, is this working or? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, this one. All right.
Do you want to introduce?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
if you don't mind, go ahead and introduce who's here with us, please.
I'd like to introduce who's here. We've got Dr. Kristen McGranner from STEM Prep Academy, Dr. Alan Coverstone from MNPS. We've got Chris Reynolds from Lead Preparatory or Lead Public Schools, Randy Dowell from KIPP Academy Nashville, Harry Allen, who's the board chair of Purpose Prep Academy, which is a school in North Nashville, and Jean Smalley, who is a parent of students at both Nashville Prep and the new KIPP High School that's opening this fall.
Very good. I think we're going to, if you don't mind, we'll turn our attention to the screen, and the presentation is at your desk as well as on the screen. Mr. Testerman, it's yours.
It's not working. You have a copy of our PowerPoints on your desk, so we'll just roll with it and you can look at those. The mission of the Tennessee Charter School Center is to support and cultivate high-performing charter schools and advocate for autonomy, choice, and accountability in public education. We do this through community engagement, grassroots and legislative advocacy, and by providing support to individual charter schools in the sector. Again, I'd like to emphasize that the core concepts that we think are most important in the charter school movement are choice, autonomy, and accountability. And there are a number of ways that you can get at those concepts. We can see an MNPS is steadily moving in that direction with the creation of the iZone schools, as well as giving more autonomy to principals and pushing budgeting decisions down to principals as well. And those are all reforms that we wholeheartedly support and think will bear much fruit. What is a charter school? I know this might be a little bit elementary, but charter schools are public schools that are allowed the freedom to be more innovative while being held accountable for advancing student achievement. As I said, they're public schools, which means they are open to all students. They don't charge tuition, and there are no special entrance requirements. Charter schools were created to help improve our nation's school system, and there really was the intention for there to be a flow of information about what is working in charter schools back to the traditional system. As Dr. Register noted, there hasn't been as much done on that front in the past, and we hope to rectify that and to facilitate the flow of both what's working in the traditional district and in charter schools. Charter school legislation was first introduced in Tennessee in 1992, but was not ultimately passed until 2002. The original legislation was very restrictive on the number of schools that could be opened and who could attend a school. Over the years, those restrictions were steadily removed until 2011, when all students could attend schools and there were no limits on how many schools could be established. These initial restrictions actually led to a very slow growth of the charter school movement here, which has been very positive because it's given us time to learn lessons from around the country, from other places where they've been implementing charter school for much longer. Now, often you will hear opponents of charter schools cite studies that show charter schools are no better than traditional public schools and do not perform better or in fact perform worse. And if you look at the national data, it is quite mixed. That is certain. However, if you look just at Tennessee, which is what we're concerned about, the data is unequivocally strong. Tennessee is tied for the highest performing sector in terms of reading and among the highest in math. And this is, that last slide was from Stanford University and the Center for Research on Educational Outcomes, which is held up as generally the gold standard in charter school research. Now, more importantly, how are charter schools in Nashville doing? Now, these next two slides show all of the middle schools in MNPS that have free and reduced lunch populations of more than 70%, which, as you know, is a proxy for poverty, and the charter schools are in orange. It shows that charter schools are performing consistently well above average and are offering an incredible return on investment to the taxpayers of Davidson County. And it should be noted that the two charter schools that are X'd out are the schools that were closed this past year, and we supported that. We are about quality first and foremost, and we'll be the first to stand up and call for the closure of schools that aren't performing. Two of the schools you see on the left there, Brick Church and Cameron, are turnaround schools. They are charters that have taken over traditionally low-performing schools in our community, and they've been posting really good gains, and we have every reason to believe that those schools will continue to improve over time. The next slide shows the one charter high school. This coming year, we will have 3 charter high schools in Nashville, but this past year we just had one, which is Lead Academy High School. And the data shows that Lead Academy has consistently demonstrated some of the highest growth of any students in the entire state of Tennessee. And their first graduating class boasted a 100% college, 4-year college acceptance rate, which is truly remarkable, and I believe the founder of Lead Public Schools is here, Jeremy Kane, so hats off to you and your team. If you haven't seen their YouTube video of their college signing day, I encourage you to go on YouTube and look it up. It's really inspiring and a lot of fun to watch. As I said earlier, charter schools have been growing slowly. The upcoming school year, they are expected to serve about 7% of the district's students, and they are allocated about 7% of the district's resources, a proportional amount. And this is a topic that Dr. Coverstone will dive into in just a moment. It's important to note, as you see, and as you likely know, the overall population of the district has also been growing as the number of charter school students has been growing. And finally, I just wanted to give you a snapshot of the demographics in our charter schools. You can see that charter schools are serving the students that need them the most and are located in the neighborhoods where they are needed the most. Next, I'm going to have turn it over to Dr. Coverstone.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Register, for your comments. I think those are very helpful, and they're going to be an exciting thing to face first thing in the morning. We'll have a lot of work to do, and I'm looking forward to doing it. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time to dive into this issue. As Justin said, I'm going to dive into some of the growth and economic questions that get asked. I can only scratch the surface, and I'll try to be fairly concise so we can get to the interesting things that are going on in the schools and with the school leaders. But some of this is information that I developed and shared with the school board the other night. Just want to make sure that I at least engage this part of the conversation as well. We all are interested in spending our resources wisely and making sure that the resources that we use are gaining maximum return in terms of our two goals, which are to build excellent schools that are diverse, that serve our population so that everyone in our city can have a first-class education regardless of what zip code they live in or where they end up going to school. In the 5 years since we started the charter school office, we've received 53 applications for charter schools, and we've recommended denial of 28. And without that work, most of those 53 schools would probably be operating toward failure right now. And Justin already alluded to learning from the experiences of other states where they didn't have a quality bar from the outset, and those experiences are that they have some low-performing schools. They've added to their set of low-performing schools rather than the opposite, and we have been diligent in not doing that, and as a result, I think, have a good foundation of great leaders like those that you'll hear from today. At MNPS, we view charter schools as one of our many tools to pursue our mission of excellence and diversity and meet our ambitious achievement goals, which are outlined in our strategic plan for education in 2018. We don't look at schools in isolation. We look at all schools according to whether or not they serve students well, regardless of their type. And the common measurement is reflected in our academic performance framework, which allows us a way of looking at all our schools on a common set of measures that compare more apples to apples in terms of the opportunities that they offer to students. We all want to be sure that we provide excellent schools for everyone, but we don't want to break the bank in the process. And so I just want to say a few words about our thinking on that today, really aware that we will continue to have this discussion every single time that we have a budget cycle and every single time we talk about the return on the investments that we make with public dollars. And we believe that responsible long-term planning in a growing city requires us to plan and commit to be ready to serve new students who will come to Nashville with at least the same resources and effectiveness as we're serving our students currently. And that assumption to me represents a no-cuts budget, and as we are a growing city, our revenue needs to grow, but our expenditures will need to grow some as well in order to serve the new students who come to town with a world-class education. Now, you can see here that between 2009 and 2018, MNPS will add approximately 11,000 students to its rolls. If all we do now is serve the new students with at least the same resources as we're serving students currently, our budget will have to grow during that 9-year period by $102 million. Now, we're fortunate, and I'm grateful to say that you've already provided us with increases along the way that have kept up with our growth, and those increases have kept us on pace. So it's not like we have to find the $102 million. We've planned, you've done your work, we've done ours, and I think we're in a good position going forward. Looking at our investments in charter school growth over that same 9-year period, 2009 to 2018, you can see that the minimum required increase in the no-cuts budget is sufficient to cover the costs of our new schools, even if we make no difficult choices, if we just serve the new students who come to town with the new seats that we've been creating. This is a version of long-term planning for growth that we think can put in place schools that are well-established and effective and offer a real magnet to draw more students and families into our city, even as we're improving the core district schools at the same time. Now, we want to offer world-class schools like Hume Fogg, MLK, Meigs, Lockland, Head, Dan Mills, Glendale, Hillsborough, and so on for every student in Nashville. And the least we can do is not ask the current students to sacrifice for the new students or ask the new students to take less than the students that we've already been serving. That would no longer make us the it city to attract people to town. And so we think that the no-cuts budget is an important goal for our city, but it's a goal that we have to work with you on. You're the ones who hold that responsibility, and it's our responsibility to make sure we deliver the results on the resources that you have available. And surprises can happen, and so while we have to invest now if we're going to be ready to serve our growing student population 5 years from now, some could argue that even this basic level of revenue growth is not assured, and we know it's not. In our model, there's only two possibilities, however. Either we will realize our revenue growth that is equal to or greater than our student growth, and new students will be funded at or above funding levels in our current student population, or we'll have to adapt to budgets that cut per pupil expenditures below current levels. In the first scenario, our present new school investment strategy fits well within the projected fiscal capacity that we'll have going forward, meeting our needs for growth without capital expenditures and replacing low-performing schools with high-performing schools, while expanding the number of students served by our current high performers. But in the second scenario, should unforeseen cuts come, then we need to be positioned now to make the tough choices to reduce expenditures where the results are not as good. The best predictor of future performance is past performance, and any investor would strive to maintain a diverse portfolio and expand those assets that perform best and reduce those low-performing assets.
Dr. Coverstone, let me...
Yes, sir.
Chairman Stein, I couldn't help but see your, could you define for the council, please, what no cuts budget means?
Correct.
Exactly?
Yes. That is a projection of the number of students that we will add to our rolls multiplied by the current per pupil expenditure that we are making in the district for the number of students we have now.
But that does not include automatic steps or anything else? That's just per pupil to actual dollars, is it?
Right, it is a per pupil basis for looking exactly, and I would say it would be all encompassing.
Chairman Stein, did that? Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Yes.
Apologize for that. I knew I could lose you quickly, and I apologize. Let's move forward from here. If we're talking about quality investments, and if we're talking about return on our investments, and if we're talking about fiscal capacity, which is what I'm charged with addressing here today, I think it's important for us also to think about the returns and the money that we are leveraging and saving in the process. And so all of these calculations don't take into account returns on investment that are definitely paying dividends already and will make it easier for us to meet our financial and educational needs going forward. So the first area of examples are room for growth. We have several areas in the county that are growing very rapidly. The schools are overcrowded and there are portables that have to be added. There are identifiable costs associated with reducing that overcrowding, with adding school capacity in those regions. The investments that the school board just approved last week will add 2,400 student seats and no required capital investments that have to be put into that. The relationship with charter schools is such that they leverage capital investments and they leverage resources and at times even occupy our buildings and offer us lease revenue back, which allows us to help defray the costs of long-term maintenance while also serving to find a facility for the charter school operators. Between 2009 and 2018, as I said, over 11,000 new students will be added, no capital costs associated with that, and revenue generating use of existing facilities can also help to defray and offset our costs. Just for example, in the clusters where we recently approved 2 new elementary schools, even with those approvals, we will still be projected to be about 600 seats short of operating at full capacity. We'll have 607 more students than we'll have seats for in a few years. And if we didn't make those investments now, we'd still be looking for 1,600 seats in those areas. And so, we're taking a long-term approach and thinking about how we make our investments. And then when it comes to conversion of management and turnaround schools, we know that in turnaround environments, it's great and really important to hire people ahead of time and give them time to plan and time to build great schools. When we do that with charter operators and charter partners, they make those investments up front, and then they come to us and ask for approval of their plan, and if we approve their plan, they have a whole nother year of preparation and development, and we transfer nothing to them in terms of dollars for that. They will use some private fundraising or just their own personal commitments and blood, sweat, and tears, and they do that on behalf of the mission that they're putting in place so that they launch their school with systems in place. Were we to do that with schools that might find themselves on a priority list this fall, that could be between 7 and 15 schools, and it could cost us on the order of $700,000 to $1.5 million just to hire a principal, one person. for 1 year, and we get that, and we get a partner in the process when we do that through charter schools. So there's all kinds of returns on investment that are sometimes not really noticed, but I think are really a part of long-term planning for growth and also diversifying our ability to serve students in need. Last thing I'll say, and I'll turn it over to Kristen, is that the real return on investment is, are they performing effectively? We have a diversity management plan in our district which demands academic excellence and diversity, and these are the schools in the K through 8 tier that meet both of these very high thresholds. Now, it's our goal to have 100% of our schools meet those thresholds, and many schools are well on their way, but it is charter schools that are helping us in that regard and helping to show us the way, and as we collaborate and cooperate, I think we will find more ways to move toward these goals together.
Can I have the steering wheel? Okay, great. Good afternoon. First, Chairman Glover, I would like to thank you for including us in this really important conversation. Before I dive in, on my way here, we have a room full of parents at school who are folding uniforms to distribute on July 19th when we have parent orientation. And so as I was heading out, they, of course, were very interested in where I was going, and I shared with them the purpose for tonight's meeting. And I said, do you have anything that you would like for me to pass on as I'm representing you? And I had one of our moms, Mrs. Ruiz, share with me that she wanted to say thank you to everyone who leads our community, and said, and I'm paraphrasing, but she said, I have a dream in my heart for my child to go to college. And I feel like this school and this community and the people who are leading the school and this community are going to make that happen. So thank you for including our school, STEM Prep, and as a charter school in tonight's conversation and in the larger conversation about how we improve Nashville at large. So I pass that on to everyone in the room. As I sit here tonight, I represent 400 fifth grade, sixth grade, and seventh grade, and eighth grade students at STEM Prep, as well as their families. We currently operate a middle school. We're going into our 4th year of operation, and just last month, we were afforded a great opportunity to expand our reach by opening a high school about a year from now, so that our students can continue in their program as they move into high school and into college. For a little bit of context, I want to share who we are. We are located in Southeast Nashville, serving a population that is 93% free and reduced meals. About 65% of our students have been enrolled as English language learners at some point during their academic career. The majority of our kids enter the school 2 to 4 years behind grade level in both reading and math. So what that means as a practical matter is, a 10-year-old fifth grader coming in reading at a second grade level and needing to have access to fifth grade level text, which, as you can imagine, presents quite a challenge. As we look ahead to our impact in the Southeast Nashville community, we are looking to increase the college-ready population in Southeast Nashville by 30% over the next 10 years. More than that, with our forthcoming high school, in which we're going to offer students the opportunity to complete a technical degree while they're also completing their high school diploma. We will increase the credentialed population by 50% in health sciences and IT here in Nashville, which is an exciting opportunity for our kids. From a demographic perspective, to continue, we are often recognized as one of the most diverse charter schools in the state. We reflect that Southeast Nashville community we serve. About 65% of our students are Hispanic, about 28% African American. Our students come from homes where over 20 native languages are spoken. So as we think about our our student population, and as you hear about these demographics, you see that we have the capacity and the urgent need to address the multiple risk factors that are present among the population. So why STEM prep and why the focus on science, technology, engineering, and math of our school? We conceive of STEM education as an issue of equity, first and foremost. And you all are probably very familiar with these data, particularly given that the sciences and IT are industry assets here in the Middle Tennessee region. So we are looking through our program to increase the representation of traditionally unrepresented populations in not only college pathways, but also in the career pathways of the future, which of course are in the STEM fields. Without getting extremely technical, the achievement gap is the most researched topic in education. And as a former researcher at Vandy, I definitely had the opportunity to work on many of those studies. And the gap is traditionally conceptualized as the gap between performance of high-income and low-income kids. We think about it in a little bit differently at our school in terms of what are those gaps in skills that will allow our students to truly master college-level material, and more than that, what are those skills that they need in order to be successful in the most competitive career pathways. So when we think about the achievement gap, we actually think about it as a series of gaps from no skills to basic skills, from basic skills to advanced skills, and then to truly mastery of the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that kids need. So in short, what we teach at our school is thinking, those critical thinking skills that our students need to be successful, not only in work, but as well as in life. So our model, very simplified, is we enact ambitious teaching and learning. We set very high goals for our students, very high goals for our team. In addition, we provide robust supports for teacher development. We're not only concerned with accelerating the growth of our students, but accelerating the growth of every teacher in front of them every day, so that every child, every day, every class is taught by the most highly effective teacher. And then finally, our model is, and the best way I can think of to describe this, is highly responsive. We are a data-driven organization and have leveraged our autonomy as a public charter school to implement structures and systems that allow us to respond immediately to whatever needs our students present on any given day. And not only whatever needs our students present, but the needs of their families as well as our staff. And that's an important piece of our model as well. So I'm going to share with you our internal performance goals. And whenever I share these with visitors to our school, and many of you in this room have been to our school on multiple occasions, but whenever I say, okay, 80% of our kids, we want 80% of our kids proficient by the end of the 5th grade year, knowing that only 20% of them are proficient when they come into us, or knowing that the majority of our students are reading at between a 2nd and 3rd grade level. Is that too ambitious of a goal? Are you setting them up for failure by setting that bar so high? And my answer to that is always absolutely not, because our students deliver what we expect, and it would be certainly a disservice to expect anything less. Now, have we reached these goals that we've set internally for ourselves? I will just be candid and say no. We have been honored, and our team deserves all of the recognition around the results that they've achieved with our kids so far over the last 3 years as a reward school, for example, and you saw the data that Justin Testerman presented. And when to be perfectly candid, whenever we are honored in any way for these results, I always in a very uncomfortable manner, say thank you. Because the discomfort there is that it's really hard for us at school to celebrate because we're not at 100%. And so, yes, we're getting there, but really until every single child in our building and every single child in our community has achieved at that high level, we still have a considerable amount of work to do. So in closing, and before I pass it to my colleagues here, the greatest challenge that we have as charter school operators, and I think that my colleagues would agree, is the urgency of the need and the greatest opportunity we have as a charter school is the opportunity to structure our schools and our programs to address that need just as urgently as the need is presented to ourselves. I'm going to pass it now to Randy Dow of KIPP Nashville to continue describing how we leverage our autonomy for results.
Great. Thanks, Kristen. My name is Randy Dowell. I'm the Executive Director of KIPP Nashville. First, I want to thank Councilman Glover for this forum, members of the Education Committee, and council members. Thank you for everyone in the audience for being here and the interest. I've got the steering wheel. No problem. So I'm going to start here and just ask that we start with this picture. This is an 8-year-old picture, and I'll come full circle back to this picture in a few moments. But when I hear Dr. McGrainer talk about the urgency of the need, this is what comes to mind. And this is the way, so much of what Dr. McGrainer shared that's happening at STEM Prep is just shared language, shared beliefs, and also in many ways shared vocabulary, and in this case, new vocabulary. Urgency of the need, I love it, thank you. I'm going to steal that. When we look at what's happening in education in America, and this is not a Nashville issue, this is not a Tennessee issue, this is an American issue. We look at what's happening, we see low-income students have about a 1 in 10 chance of graduating from college. Okay, high-income students have about an 8 in 10 chance. The Education Trust in 2014, under Katie Haycock, put out the number 79%. So Americans in the top quartile economically have a 79% chance of completing college within 6 years. The gap of college completion from low income to high income in America is huge. At KIPP Nashville, we think of this as the opportunity gap. And our job, our responsibility, the reason that we exist, is to help close this gap in a very, very small corner of our city. We say we're going to build a vibrant college-going culture in East and North Nashville. So before we move on, who are we at KIPP Nashville? I'm here representing about 75 faculty members, along with almost 700 students and their parents, about 200 of whom will report to day one of school on Monday. And so they're a very hard-working group. Teachers are right now making final preparations for those classes. High school students will report in a few weeks. And when we look at who we are demographically, our students, about 90% of them are on free or reduced lunch. 79% African American, 17% Hispanic, 15% receive special education services. And with that, I'm not going to go back to results. Our students have driven very, very strong results. We're very proud of those results. At the same time, this is what we're driving towards. 79% college completion is where we're pushing, and we will be excited when we reach that goal. Everything else are milestones along the way. Our focus at KIPP Nashville is really this vision statement, that one day every student in Nashville will have access to a high-quality college preparatory seat in a public school. And so I just want to pause here and say, Dr. Register, I got chills when I'm sitting back here and hearing you make this request for collaboration and teamwork. And on behalf of KIPP Nashville, yes, we embrace your offer, and we thank you for it, and we appreciate your leadership. and we're thrilled. So, Justin, queue up the meetings. We'll be there, and again, thank you. This is a vision that KIPP Nashville is not going to do alone. It never was a vision that we could do alone. We serve, as I said, almost 700 students in a district that's 80,000 students. We're excited to collaborate, to share both lessons learned that worked and also lessons of things that we tried that didn't work. We have plenty of both. When we think about one of the things that's worked at KIPP Nashville, we look at these 6 essential questions, we call them. Are we serving the children who need us? Are our students staying with us? Are our students progressing and achieving academically? Are our alumni, because we work with our students after they leave us, straight not only to college, but through college? Are our alumni climbing the mountain to and through college? Are we building a sustainable people model? And is our financial house in order? And so this is taken off of a dashboard that I share with my board when we meet. And the idea here is if we're constantly asking these questions and measuring our progress across these six fields, we should have a clear understanding of our school's health, our organization's health. You see we are green in, I guess, 5 of the areas, or 4 of the areas. We're yellow in 2 of the areas. One of our sayings at KIPP Nashville has been, we embrace red as the new green. So if we ever go red, we focus all in there and try and get it to yellow, and things that are yellow get a lot of attention to try and turn them green. Another, I guess, focal point of ours is human capital. And so, again, you're going to hear things that are very similar to what Dr. McGrainer shared. I'm not going to dive into this, but this is our leadership competency model. It really is the key to how we develop people, how we develop the adults in our building. And when we're pulling people on board, these are the types of things that we're looking for, both in our teachers and also in our leaders. Then, from that starting point of onboarding our people, we're very goal-driven, very data-driven. We like to say that we grow people, big and small. And so we grow our children, we grow our students, we also grow ourselves. It's important if you join our team, the culture that we're developing is one of goal setting, measurement, looking at the data. If the data is good, we goal set again. If the data is bad, we goal set again. But going through this cycle over and over and over. We've also been fortunate enough to partner, and Dr. Register, I said we would partner with you. We have partnered with you as well. KIPP is a national organization. We're here locally. We have local control, a local board. We're a local nonprofit organization. But we're also part of a team that spans the country. And one of the offerings of that team is we've been able and fortunate enough to share our approach to developing leaders with superintendents and school systems across the country, including Metro's Executive Director of Talent Strategy, who participated in this program during not this past school year, but the year before. Finally, I'm going to wrap up here. When you look at these 2 students and you think through the vision for our organization and the opportunity gap that we're driving to close, just a month and a half ago, these 2 students who started off as 5th graders at KIPP, again, getting ready, not only having graduated, but also first in families, going to 4-year colleges, and we're going to continue to support them as we push forward. So again, thank you for your time. Look forward to questions, and I'll hand it over to Chris Reynolds with LEAD. There you go. Thanks, Ray. Hold that, Bruce. You got one right here.
Great. Chairman Glover, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Council members, members of the Education Committee. I couldn't begin to tell you a little bit about LEAD Public Schools without starting with my former partner and LEAD's founder, Jeremy Kane, who single-handedly brought me here to Nashville for the reason of partnership. He and Dr. Coverstone and Dr. Register had hatched an idea to do the first district charter conversion in Tennessee history. And so, Dr. Register, while I was thrilled to hear your comments earlier, I feel like we've been doing this work with you for several years, and I look forward to continuing it. But I would like the members in attendance tonight to know that it was a risk-taking, bold maneuver that Dr. Register and Dr. Coverstone took in working with Jeremy and me and some others to attempt this. And it has now set the stage for work that is occurring in Memphis and elsewhere in Nashville. And now we see Randy and his team at KIPP engaging in the same level of partnership to transform schools across our city. It is a pleasure to continue that work. By way of background, LEAD started in 2007 as a single charter school. And the vision for that school, which is the same for all of our schools, is to do whatever it takes to send all of our kids to a four-year college or university. And just this past May, we celebrated that in grand fashion. And it was a true inspirational moment and day. And it is going to drive the work that we do and the work that our staff does year in and year out, day in and day out, to have that proof point that any kid, regardless of background, regardless of academic deficit that they may arrive to us with, regardless of circumstances, came out of the womb with the same passions, the same belief that their parents had in them, and the same opportunities. And it's a joy to be able to work to support our families and kids in that way. Presently, we run 4 charter schools serving grades 5 through 12. Historically, LEAD schools have and continue to serve higher portions of English language learners and special education students in the district, and we continue to do so. The 2 conversion campuses that I referred to are Brick Church College Prep and Cameron College Prep, Cameron being the first partnership that we started several years ago with the district. It's important to note that those are zoned enrollment schools. And really the only thing different between a conversion school and a zone neighborhood school is who's operating it. The expectations are the same, the performance measures are the same, and we're doing it with a partnership approach to the community, to the families, and we accept students year-round in those campuses. There's our mission and vision. I spoke about the vision a moment ago. Our mission to achieve that vision is to support, educate, and train the next generation of responsible citizens. We feel that we're off to a good start with our high school success. We're trying to replicate that on our other campuses, and like my colleagues who spoke before, we make mistakes and we learn and we address them. And we like to think at LEAD that our success comes from how we address our failures and how we address the opportunity to learn, not how we celebrate the successes. Let's see here. As I mentioned, there's a nice pic. We probably should have brought a little larger picture. That is our first graduating class. All of those students will be enrolling in a 4-year college or university, and almost half of them are currently enrolled in summer school at a college or university, and they're getting a head start. We're getting photographs of college IDs in the email, and our faculty are absolutely joyous when those come in and they start humming around our network email, and I can't tell you how my colleagues and friends here, when they have that opportunity, I'm grateful to share in that with them. All our schools are demonstrating significant progress at closing the achievement gap, and we expect them to be recognized for that when the results come out in a few months. Moving on, I was asked to speak to this group about how we use our autonomy to achieve great results. And really, autonomy is about the leadership in the schools. And if any one of us were a school director or a school principal, we would like the autonomy and the budget to do what's best for our kids and our staff. And so to that end, we try to make every effort possible to push the maximum amount of the budget down to the school director and spend it in the school building. In addition, we invest significant time in teacher training. And earlier today, I was actually at Cameron, and we're running our Curriculum Institute. We're preparing to transition to the Common Core, and we have a third of our staff training this week, and we will be welcoming all of our staff next week for 3 more weeks of training before we start school in early August. In addition to that, each of our campuses are actively involved in parent and community partnerships, and if there's one thing that our faculty may be a little frustrated about with us at LEAD is we do a lot of tours. We are constantly welcoming people into the classrooms, and our teachers, they respect that and they appreciate that, and we tell them that it's going to continue. But we want to share the work that we're doing, and we want people to give us critical feedback so we can get better. But it's kind of a point of humor in our organization that various people are always in the buildings. But we are grateful for those opportunities when people want to come see our work in action. And then lastly, what are the challenges? I don't think the challenges we have are much different than any public school or any great organization. We're always trying to find the best talent to do the work. We're always looking for venues and facilities where we can do that work and we can honor our students with equitable facilities. And we're always looking to improve by reevaluating our performance and seeking third-party opinions on where we're doing well and where we can improve. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over. But thank you for the opportunity to speak and share a little bit about LEAD Public Schools.
Thank you. Chairman Glover and Metro Council, again, thank you for this opportunity to address you and talk about the important role of charters in our community. My name's Harry Allen. I am by day the Senior Vice President and Relationship Manager at Avenue Bank, servicing our commercial banking clients. I'm also the board chair of Purpose Prep Academy, a new charter elementary school in North Nashville, and in that capacity is why I'm here tonight. So why have I volunteered my time as a board member at a charter school? I've been passionate about education my entire life, mainly because my mom was a Metro school teacher for 34 years. I'm the product of Metro Nashville Public Schools and a native. Met my wife at Meigs Middle School and graduated from Hume-Falk High School. I'm from North Nashville, the community where Purpose Prep is located, and so to me it's my way of investing in my home. And, you know, having attended a school of choice in Nashville, I realize and recognize the importance of providing options for parents. And so when Lagra Newman, our head of school, approached me about getting involved, it was an easy yes for me. Well, a little bit difficult because I had a 3-month baby, but at any rate, it was a passion of mine and a way to serve. As a public charter school and as an institution of public trust, board members of charter schools take that responsibility extremely seriously. As a governing board, while we discharge the duties of managing the school and operating the school to the head of school, our responsibility is to make sure that the school is governed responsibly and with transparency. Each school is an independent 501c3 and is required to file an IRS Form 990. And each year we conduct an independent financial audit that is made available to the public on the comptroller's website. At Purpose Prep, we also have posted ours at givingmatters.com, and it's made available to anyone who requests it. And we hold ourselves and school leadership accountable for achieving our strategic goals and objectives. At our school, we do this through the sharing of our academic dashboard and our financial reports, which are shared at the finance committee level and with the full board each month. As directors and community volunteers, it's our job to leverage our personal networks and relationships to bring resources to the work of our school. This may look very similar to other nonprofit boards of directors that you're familiar with: strategic resource development, planning, community engagement, etc. As a self-perpetuating board, it's our job to make sure that we identify people who are mission-aligned and who can help us effectively carry out our work. At Purpose Prep, we specifically look for people who share the school's core values. We call these Rise with Purpose principles. They're respect, integrity, self-determination, and excellence. To us, it's critical that the behaviors and high standards of character we expect from our scholars are exhibited at all levels of leadership. I've served on a number of nonprofit boards. I've been a banker to not-for-profit organizations and asked to serve on numerous finance committees, but I can honestly say that my board service at Purpose Prep has been the most gratifying. Serving on charter school boards gives Nashville community leaders like me the opportunity to get involved in public education, committing our time, our talents, our treasure to supporting the mission. Governing boards of nonprofits are critical in providing accountability and transparency to public organizations. Purpose Prep belongs to Nashville. It's the community's school, and the community has trusted us and the board members to be good stewards of its resources. And I can proudly say that after our first year at Purpose Prep, we've done just that. 88% of our first graduating class of kindergarten scholars ended kindergarten reading at the first grade level, and 95% are on or above grade level. Two of our teachers, we have 6 teachers, and we'll add a grade each year. We just started with kindergarten, but 2 of our 6 teachers were honored by Metro as Blue Ribbon teachers, and our head of school, Lagra Newman, was selected among Tennessee Education Lottery and News Channel 2's Educators of the Week in May. So by all accounts and measures of success, it was a fantastic first year for Purpose Prep, and I'm excited about the school's future, but most importantly about the future of our scholars. So thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight, and I'll turn it over to our parent representative.
Thank you, sir. And this mic, if you'd like to use the microphone there, sir.
First of all, I would like to thank you, Chairman Glover and Dr. Register, for your leadership, and thank you to the charter school and the public school, which we should call the school community, for serving our community and our students and our children. My name is Gene Smalley. I have a son at Nashville Prep and a daughter transitioning to KIPP Collegiate. I'm happy for this day of civility. Hopefully I can speak for all parents when I say that. I'm so happy that Nashville Prep came along for our family at a time when it did, and now KIPP Collegiate. The last time I spoke about my son. He goes to Nashville Prep, and Nashville Prep came along at a time for us when he was transitioning from grade school to middle school, and I think that's an awfully big step. And now my daughter is transitioning from middle school to high school, and it's an equally large step for the whole family, not just the child, for all of us. It's a life adjustment that has to take place, and I feel like Nashville Prep made that adjustment really easy. I thank all of you for the hard work that you're doing in the community to serve the children and to serve the parents. And I thank you, Dr. Register, for your sentiment, because now I don't have to feel torn about choice and parent choice and where our children go to school, whether it be a community school or a charter school, which to me they've always been the same thing. For our experience at Nashville Prep, my son has learned I have to say that his language has changed from I may go to college to I will go to college. So now I'm not looking at someone that will be working at McDonald's or have a substandard job. I know that he is capable of completing a 4-year degree and doing whatever that he wants to do with his life. He's garnered self-respect for himself and for his fellow students. He learns leadership. He learns camaraderie. His self-esteem is above board. Not only does he think he's smart, he knows he's smart. And I can no longer answer all of his questions. He asks me stuff that I can't answer anymore, so we have to look it up. And I enjoy this newfound son that I've gotten over the few years that I've gotten. I enjoy the rigor. I enjoy that he has too much homework all the time, because actually I no longer have to help him as much with his homework as I used to, because he knows how to do it. So I actually end up spending more time with my son than I used to. We read books together. We do just amazing things, and he's an amazing child. And the community that we have at home is extended by Nashville Prep. And I would like to have that for everybody.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up for council members with any questions they have. Council Member Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate you setting up this meeting and giving us the opportunity to answer questions. And I do thank everyone for being here, including Dr. Register. I have a question for Mr. Testerman. You had spoke that you're going to call Dr. Register immediately tomorrow. As I look at your handout, Tennessee Charter School, the mission statement, as well as what is a charter school. I'm hoping that you all will, I like those 3 words, autonomy, accountability, and choice. And that is so important for giving the parent the opportunity to make that choice in whatever school that they decide to send their child. But I also look at what is a charter school. I've read this before, and I've gotten some comments from individual like what is actually a charter school. And I like the part that says they are public schools and they are allowed the freedom to be more innovative while being held accountable for advancing student achievement. That's what charter schools are. They're public schools. So I hope that when you, Dr. Register, get together, you all utilize as a marketing tool to say this is just another school choice, and not to, like the young man said, not to confuse parents, or just say this is just another way of saying you can send your child to get educated, instead of separating. I get so tired of hearing charter school versus public school. It says here, charter schools are public schools. I mean, I don't know how simple you can get this. That's my comment. The second thing is that I want to, Cameron School Prep is in my area, and Collegiate Prep is in my area, and I'm always interested in parental engagement, community engagement. I've heard 3 outstanding presentations from STEM, KIP, and LED. How are you all engaging parents and community engagement? How are you all doing this? Could y'all 3 just give us a brief, comment on that, please?
Thank you for the opportunity to answer that. We get this question often, and I give an answer that's often uninspiring, which is it's common courtesy. We call our parents a lot. We ask them to come visit. We make home visits. Our teachers, without a map, can find the homes of the vast majority of our children. And that's the relationship part that I think is missing in a lot of public education. And it's just common courtesy, and it's hard work. And when you call parents on a regular basis about good things, not always frustrating matters, you build a bridge. And then the next thing you know, and this happens often in our schools, is we have parents, and this is tricky given some of the recent news lately, but they'll bring baked goods into the school to thank the office managers or the teachers. And it was those small steps that show us that people care about what we're doing, and I believe it really starts with common courtesy and phone calls and welcoming people into the building. Kristen?
So at STEM Prep, we believe in changing the relationship between home and school. At least when I was growing up, and in schools in which I taught in Memphis and worked here in Nashville, sometimes the relationship unintentionally becomes transactional and compliance driven. And so we try to think very strategically about how to build those meaningful and deep relationships by serving not only the student, but also serving the family, and through programming that provides a sense of stability for the family as well. And that includes programming relative to health services, Zumba every Wednesday night for anyone who's interested, as well as language classes, entrepreneurship classes, home ownership, tax prep. We try to serve our community as a community center and not solely as an education institution.
Councilmember Evans.
Thank you, Chairman Glover. And first, let me say this was a great idea. Thank you very much for organizing this, and thanks for having Dr. Register come and talk a little bit about the dialogue or lack thereof we've been having recently. I have a few questions for, I guess, Mr. Coverstone. Is he still here? Oh, there you are, Alan. The question of attrition at charter schools has not been brought up tonight. And there's been this debate, dialogue about, kids are being, am I using the right word, kicked out of charter schools before TCAPs and stuff like that. Would you care to address that? And specifically, would you address the findings related to mobility that came out of what I think you're going to talk about, which is this Vanderbilt study?
Yeah, thank you for that question. This is one of those things that obviously drives a lot of psychological and kind of angst-ridden wedges among people. The bottom line is we have a high mobility rate here in town, and we need to work together to reduce our mobility rate because, it's just good for students to find stability in school, especially if they lack that stability elsewhere. And so we have been trying to work together with charter schools on that. Now, to the question of kicking out of schools before TCAP, that's achieved, and the Vanderbilt study that you're looking at there on your desk revealed from interviews that that's sort of achieved a mythical status or a sense of a truism, but upon further investigation, there just isn't evidence of that. And furthermore, that when you look at the actual mobility and transition rates, they're actually twice as high in schools of zone as they are in schools of choice. And that's not a condemnation on schools of zone. That's just an opportunity, I think, for all of our schools of choice and all of our schools of zone to work together to try to reduce those mobility points as much as possible. But I think that's overplayed, and unfortunately to the detriment of our ability to work together.
And would you, as the head of the innovation zone, and I will tell you, and for the record, when people when people talk about charter schools in Nashville, by applying the construct of charter schools in America, and there have been some not great stories, Florida, Michigan, for example, I cringe because I think that our staff at MMPS, and particularly Dr. Coverstone, has done an exemplary job of making sure that we aren't in the newspaper about some of these things. So if you were to discover a charter school was kicking kids out to manipulate their TCAP scores or for any reason, that's something that you would promptly investigate and see to, correct?
Oh, absolutely, and we investigate allegations even if there is no concrete evidence, and so we're looking into that all the time, and we would make that known. If we found evidence of that, we would cite the school and make that known through the process of sending that information to our board, and all of those kinds of investigations and the results become part of the file that's reviewed every 10 years. These schools have to re-earn their right to stay open every 10 years, and so what goes into that file really matters.
Okay, and the last question, you mentioned, and you went by this a little fast, and you know how I love to talk about capital, but charter schools do not use capital. They get no capital from the city. Can you just talk about that a little bit more, because you went through it a little faster than I, capital geek, would like.
Yeah, that's correct. We have the opportunity, if we'd like, to back requests for capital allocation to charter schools, but as you know, we have huge capital needs every year, and we have to make choices every year, and the real advantage of managing growth the way that we have has been that we have been able to partner with organizations that are so committed and can leverage resources in such a way that they've been able to provide a lot of capital that we really just haven't paid for. And I think it's a tremendous asset and a tremendous advantage. And when we can find ways to utilize school buildings that otherwise would be standing empty, or school buildings that are otherwise underutilized, and leverage our relationship with these providers to help defray some of the long-term costs of those buildings as well, I think it's a win-win for the city, and something that we don't usually recognize when we think about just the cost of charter schools.
Great. Thank you very much for being here tonight, and thank you, Chairman Glover. It's very helpful.
Thank you, Council Lady. Councilman Claiborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank all of you who have participated and come to be a part of this. Without saying it, it's certainly part of what Dr. Register has offered up as the beginning of a significant conversation that hadn't taken place that certainly needs to. I have two questions I want to ask. One of these is a question that I asked during our budget hearings, and I did not get an answer, and it has to do with student populations in charter schools. I can't remember exactly how I posed the question, but I prefaced it with the fact that here in Nashville, we've gone through decades of court-ordered desegregation. Painful at times, but we finally moved past that. And as the charter movement came in, there were specific areas and select populations that could only be part of the charter movement. In 2009, those students at risk were eligible to be part of the charter school community. And then in 2011, all the requirements were lifted, and it was open, period. So depending on how you look at it, we're either 3 years or 5 years down the road from when open enrollment to some degree or another was possible. Yet we still have what amounts to segregated schools in the Nashville area. So how do we justify that? And what are the measures that are being taken to rectify that?
Well, I think it's a great question, and I think it's a citywide question that also includes our housing patterns and what we do in terms of economic development policy here, and we need to do that aggressively, and we are committed to that. The diversity management plan that the district adopted applies to charter schools as well as it applies to all of our other schools, recognizing that you can't just have a diverse school without one that is also providing excellent educational opportunity. That plan says we need to advance those things together. Charter schools are committed to that, and they produce diversity management plans, which are similar in type to the plans that we have, and over time they are developing both their outputs and their recruiting and marketing to move in the direction of becoming more diverse schools. And we've added some schools recently that are really intentionally about building strong, diverse schools. The Valor Academy schools are very dedicated to recruiting a diverse student population, and one that's diverse socioeconomically as well as racially and on language basis and so on. And they've hit their targets and will open with a very diverse school the first year. You saw Liberty Collegiate, STEM Prep Academy, which are among the schools in the district that meet both our excelling and achieving measures and our diversity measures. And so what we've committed to doing as a district is moving consistently toward that ideal of high-achieving diverse schools. We consider that when we review applications. We work with schools to make sure they're moving in that direction, and we continue to hold people accountable for that so that we can get there quickly.
So do some of the earlier schools that were established, do they have specific goals for achieving a diverse population, or are they just basically have a nebulous goal out there that we're working toward, but we're not being held to accountability to achieving that in a certain amount of time?
Well, our diversity management plan for the district is not dedicated to a specific amount of time. It operates on the assumption that every year we need to make progress in moving closer to having a universal set of schools that are both diverse and excellent. So they are on that same timeline.
Have all the charters made progress each year for the last 3 years?
Yeah, by and large.
Have all of them made progress?
Yes, I would say yes, but the goal is for us as a system to add to the number of diverse and excellent schools that we have in the system every single year, and that we've done, and especially in the charter sector.
Okay. The other question I had, and some of the other charter directors may want to answer this. I'm just wondering, you have established strategies and methods for achieving excellence in your instruction and the product that you produce. So, how do you see the impact of Common Core to what you have been doing?
I would say that the Common Core, what we've seen is we've seen an increase in rigor by focusing on fewer standards, and so the result that we've seen. If we look in a reading classroom, what we're seeing much more close reading, where our students are interacting with text in a much richer way than we've done in the past, and kind of one way of looking at this would be, almost what our 5th graders are doing now is pretty similar to what our 6th or 7th graders were doing a few years ago, and so we've seen this bump in rigor as we've rolled out Common Core along with the state and the city.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would just echo that. It's really a focus on increasing the rigor across all content levels. So there's a balanced level of influence across the school, not just in a single content area.
Okay, I think you were the one who said we've spent the last 3 weeks with our teachers trying to get ready to incorporate Common Core. Is that right?
We spent the last 4 days.
Oh, okay,
we have
4
3
days.
weeks,
I'm sorry.
Ahead of us to continue that work. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Councilman. Council Lady Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, gentlemen and lady, for being here. I just have a question, I guess it's a follow-up to Councilman Claiborne, and it's just how important is diversity to education? How important is diversity to education?
Well, we think it's extremely important. We think that one of the crucial reasons that we go to school is so that we can interact in the world around us. And if we do not acknowledge that one of the greatest advantages we have here in Nashville is a vibrant and diverse community that's as diverse as the world itself. And we don't build an education system that aims to have people interacting with one another, learning to interact with one another in a way that carries off into the communities that we build going forward, then we won't have accomplished very much in our schools. So it's a vital concern.
Okay, and then I'm trying to see, what is the definition that you use for diversity?
The diversity management plan that the district adopted, it's the same one that we use for charter schools. It operates on the assumption that you shouldn't have quotas or caps for your diversity measures or specific targets, but you should have critical masses. And so I believe it looks for schools in terms of the racial component to be diverse in having 2 significant racial groups of 30% or more, or 3 significant groups of 15% or more. And so those are the basic racial targets. The plan also includes measures in terms of income differential, language differentials, and special needs differentials. And the schools have to be within a narrow range of the district average in 2 of those 3 categories and the racial component in order to be considered diverse.
Okay, I'm glad you answered that, because it seems like, but I guess it would hit that, because I was thinking if there's only, it seems like the majority of the charter schools have been, and I had just written down some statistics. I think one lady said 65% Latino, and then the other half African American, but you're saying it can still be diverse with just 2 races there.
Provided they're 30% or more, yes.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be a significant amount of multiples of different races.
Correct.
Or different socioeconomic or economic groups.
Correct.
Okay. And then I guess my next question was about the IEPs. I get a lot of feedback that sometimes in the charter schools, and they really do a good job in terms of graduating, but sometimes that they may not be adhering to the IEPs for students. And just what steps can parents take to make sure, and is there some type of reporting that charters are responsible for? I know there's a little bit more transparency and we say we're not going to separate them, but in public schools to adhere to that, is there some type of record keeping for IEPs and dealing with students with disabilities, and how do parents handle that if they feel like their children or the teachers are not responding to those IEPs?
Yeah, great question, and very important. They will operate and report and document the IEPs through the same tools that the district uses, and so those IEPs will be communicated as they move from one school to another or as they enroll in a charter school. So that's the first answer. The second answer is that the IEP process is intentionally inclusive of parents, and so parents have to be included in that process, and they should not at all fear asking to be included in that process, nor would they be excluded from that process. That's something that they always participate in, and so anyone who has a question should certainly feel free to ask the school, can come to us, can have us help to,
And when you say us,
bridge the gap. Could come to our special ed department, which works very closely with charter schools, or to our office, and we'll help to bridge that gap.
Innovation Office of
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm trying to get
Office of Innovation.
Okay,
Good
gotcha.
point. I apologize.
Okay.
And then the last thing I was going to say is that because the district is ultimately responsible for the provision of satisfaction of IEPs across all schools in the district, then we do provide support and have people who work from our district office with schools that have questions or if they need any other supports.
Okay, thank you. And then I just have one last question, and I appreciate that provided a lot of clarity. And then how do teachers, are they required to have a certain amount of training, since and specifically in charter schools, it seems like a lot of the students are economically, I don't know if you want to use the word disadvantaged, I don't know what the word is now. What is the word? I want to stay politically correct. But since they may come to areas that are underserved, the students, do they have training in dealing with those particular populations? And specifically, I know there's a lot of issues with, at one time we were looking at the data for African American males being suspended and dealing specifically with that population. What type of training is there in place? And that's my last question.
Another great question. I mean, as far as external requirements on teacher training, it's just certification requirements that are imposed. But I would say, and I would turn it probably to the school leaders to really address this, that because they are so intended intentionally interested in focusing on and relating to and with the community and the families that they serve. I think they provide all of that kind of direct training and support for their teachers in order to make sure that they have the experience that they need. Only thing I would say about suspension is that suspension does still ultimately come to and through the district, and the district is working on that very important issue of differential and suspension rates as well, and so they'd be a part of that. Did you all want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would only add, we take that very seriously. When we look at our original school, KIPP Academy Nashville is it's going into its 10th year. It's predominantly African-American student body. 55% of our students are boys. And it's like a huge pride point, like all over campus. Like, we're really proud of that because we know our boys can succeed and will succeed. We've developed some programming. We have this Boys to Men program, which has been a huge hit. And I think also some of our extracurriculars. For example, we have a choir, and a lot of boys participate in it. And you know what? Like, at the end of the month, they're going to go to Houston and get to sing with Mary J. Blige, and like, that's all right, And I think things like that. I mean, the word I would use is the word that I used earlier today, talking to Dr. McGrainer and Ms. Lentz who runs Liberty, intentionality. And I think we bring intentionality to that problem. It's a tough problem, and it's one that we want to look in the eyes and work on and get better and better and better. And as Mr. Reynolds said, we want to get better at things over time, and that's an important one.
Thank you, Council Lady. Councilman Claiborne.
Just as a follow-up request, Mr. Coverstone, could you provide the council office for distribution then to all council members with a listing of all the different standards that are in the diversity plan and how each one of the charters measures up against each one of those diversity goals?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Council Lady Gilmore, did you have another question? Okay. Oh, sorry.
No, thank you. I was just going to say I've heard a lot of great things about KIPP, and I appreciate Mr. Dow's response. And I know that the kids are doing really well there, and I hope that the other charter schools are focusing as well on those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. All right, that being said, we're going to kind of wrap things up. Obviously, as I've spoken throughout a period of time, cost is an issue that we all need to work together. I was very happy to hear what Dr. Register had to say tonight on the collaboration piece of this. I would like, if we could, to have collaboration with the council so we can collectively try to figure out how to pay for this stuff. Okay, because it's a real issue, and it's the pink elephant that sits in the room, and we've got to figure out how we do that. And so I think this has been an extremely productive conversation tonight. Number one, I also think we're at a very critical time. Obviously, we have an election for school board members that are coming up. We have a director of schools that has about a year left on a contract. I think we need to sit down as a community and say, all right, where are we going? What are we doing? And how are we going to get there? Now, this body doesn't have a say in that. All we get to do is write the check. But I think it's critical that we do what you're doing, and that is raise the bar on accountability. Make sure that every child, no matter where charter, magnet, be it traditional, whatever the case may be, that we raise that bar and we say this is what the expectations are. We look at Common Core. We go to the state legislature and say, why are we going to do TCAP testing if we're in Common Core? I think that we collectively, as one of the largest school districts in this state, have to, flex our muscles a little bit and tell the legislature that if this is what you demand of us, then cooperate and support us. So that being said, I really appreciate every council person who was here tonight. I think this has been, again, great conversation. Hopefully it's been very instructive and informative on how charters fit into Nashville. It has been for me. And, I would like to thank everyone who's participated tonight. One of the things I've heard is conversion. That excites me. because that is cost neutral, and that's a way that if we have schools that are failing, that LEAD has already proven that with Cameron and Brick Church, that we can, and KIPS delving into those waters as well. If we can continue that conversation, I believe that will be extremely helpful and ultimately beneficial for the children of Nashville. So once again, thank you to everyone for being here tonight. Thank you to each one of the council members, and I hope the board will consider what we're doing with Dr. Register as we go forward, because we are at a critical time and we're at critical stages in our city. Thank you very much for attending tonight. We're adjourned.